Hi there, welcome to Gardens. Now I'm stood in front of a rather impressive but very overgrown grapevine. And we're in January, so it's the perfect time to prune it. This is a grapevine that's been grown over some wooden posts with metal horizontal wires, and the grapevine is growing over that into a pergola at the end of the garden, but over the years it's become a little bit tangled up, a little bit messy, and so it's kind of lost its ornamental value, so we want to reinvigorate it. So we're going to give it a heavy prune. Now grapevines really do tolerate a heavy prune, particularly if you want to revitalise them and start them off again, which is basically what we want to do here. We can't prune these in the summertime or the spring, because if you do they tend to bleed sap and they'll die. So now we're in January, it's dormant, you can see the branches, you can see the structure of it, so it's a perfect time to prune it. I could untangle it and kind of spend time, retying it in, but it's better off just to prune it hard back, because they really grow quickly. Grapevines like this will cover most of this structure in a season, or maybe two. So we can afford to be quite ruthless with it, and then next year we can retrain the grapevine over where it's meant to be. Like I said, this is being grown for ornamental value as opposed to culinary use. So they have really nice broad foliage, really nice autumnal colour, like fiery reds, and of course it fruits. So if you're not going to eat the grapes, the birds happily will. So it's really win-win if you're growing it as an ornamental vine. They cover old sheds, any sort of unsightly area in the garden. As long as it's south-facing, it will grow over it, sprawl over it, and really be a nice ornamental plant. A few different things if you're growing it for culinary use. So most people, if they're growing a grape, will want to eat the grapes from it. A few things to think about. If you're going to buy a grape, make sure it's grafted, so the rootstock will dictate what is going to be the size of the actual grapevine. So if you buy it from a nursery or a garden centre, what you'll find is that, similar to most fruit trees, the grape plant will be attached to a separate rootstock, and that will just maximise the cropping. So if you are going to buy a grapevine, look out for that, make sure it's grafted. Another thing, make sure it's grown against a south-facing wall or in as much sun as you can give it. They love sun, so as much sun as you can give them will really benefit the cropping of your grape. And make sure that the soil is nice and free draining, slightly acidic ideally. So acidic soil will maximise the crop and the taste of the grapes, but they do tolerate neutral soil. But if you can, dig in some ericaceous compost, and make sure there's a lot of organic matter in the soil, because they're really hungry, greedy plants, and they root really deep. So make sure it's got a nice deep root run, because they do like to kind of get their roots as far down into the soil as possible. So something to think about there if you're looking to maximise the crop of your grape. As for training, there's two main systems. There's the guyet system and the rod and spur system, or cordon system. Very simply, very briefly, the guyet system is similar to what we've got here in terms of the posts. So we've got wooden posts with metal horizontal wires fixed across. The guyet system will be a stem, main stem, so the grapevine planted in the ground, a main stem grown up, and then split into two arms. These are the guyet arms, and then those arms will crop the grapes. So once they crop, you'll then leave the grapevine to go dormant, and in the winter you'll then prune back the side shoots back to those two arms. So stem, two arms, in the winter cut it back, the side shoots back to the two arms. That's the guyet system. There's also the cordon system, or the rod and spur system. That's basically a grapevine planted, grown along a support, so the main stem will follow a support similar to this. It will follow a wire. So the main stem, grow it wherever you want. They're very malleable. You can kind of train them where you want them. And then the side shoots from the main arm that you've planted will crop the grapes. And then same principle, in the winter you'll then cut back those side shoots, similar to a climbing rose. So quite simple really. Once I've cut this grapevine back, next year or in the summer following this, I will show you the process of retraining it in a separate video, just to kind of exemplify what that looks like. But they're the two major systems, so the guyet system and the rod and spur system. Those are the two main methods to maximise cropping. There's a lot of other things you can do, but again, that's mainly to worry about in the summer with the thinning grapes. It's quite a laborious process, and the best way really to grow a grapevine is in a greenhouse. So plant it outside. So if you've got a greenhouse, plant the root ball outside the greenhouse, and then train it into the greenhouse through a little hole at the bottom of the greenhouse or through the door. And then the grapevine itself will grow inside the greenhouse because they love the warmth, they love the sun. That's to maximise the cropping. But those are the things to worry about if you're growing it for grapes. And if you're really, really serious about growing grapes, that's what you'll do. But for this example, purely ornamental, so there's no room for that kind of finesse. We're just going to prune it back and then train it over the system just for the ornamental value. So I'll crack on with that now. And if you have a grapevine, remember now in the winter, best time to prune them.